Everyone has a story to tell. It's my mission to tell it. Unscripted, unedited. We are on the record.
Hi everyone, I'm Serena Fazan, and thank you so much for joining me. Wow, what a special episode today. I cannot believe it. It's my 100th episode, and as many of you guys know, I have many subcategories under On the Record, but my absolute favorite, Love in America, and look who is with me. Oh my gosh, look, I even have confetti.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, Brian Auld, the president of the Tampa Bay Rays, and his beautiful wife, Molly. Oh, guys, thank you. I don't know what to say. My 100th episode, and you're here.
It's very exciting.
Thanks for having us. We're glad to be here.
And Brian even got a haircut.
Yes. Let's talk more about that.
Yes, before coming into the show, no, I can't even. Guys, not only are you my 100th episode, which I'm so humbled and flattered by, we're announcing on this show today that we're launching the Serena Fazan Network. Oh my God. Did I just say
You did.
that?
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. Okay, now I got that out of the way. I want to talk about you guys. Wonderful having you here. Molly, Brian, how long have you lived in Tampa, or in the Tampa Bay area?
I moved here in 2005, and I dragged Molly down, in 2008?
Yep.
So, long time now.
And you guys live in the St. Petersburg area, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And such huge community advocates. I mean, gosh, let's talk about, you have 3 beautiful children.
That we do.
And how old are they?
They are 6, 8, and 9, almost 10 in December.
So amazing. You guys do so much for the community. And I have to say, their love story, which, yes, we are going to get into, started on a Post-it note. I love that. Was that a good tease? Started on a Post-it note. But before we get into the love story, talk to us about the Rays, the love you have for Tampa, and everything that you're doing for the community. And Brian, I can start with you.
Wow, it's a very open-ended question.
Yes.
I think both of us wondered what Tampa Bay was all about when we moved here. Me a few years before Molly, but the opportunity to work with the Rays was just too exciting. And one of the things that I asked Stuart Sternberg at the time when I was coming down, because my pathway was towards becoming the principal of a school. My only other job has been as a 4th grade teacher, was what are we really going to try to do in the community? And he said, well, that's why we're in discussions with you. We think that you've got a good take on that, and there's a whole lot that we can do in that area. And so it's been kind of core to what the Rays have done every step of the way. I'm really proud of all that we've done along the way. Stu and the rest of the ownership group has been incredibly supportive, and I've always appreciated that we basically have 3 goals: win baseball games, provide a great fan experience, and be a model corporate citizen. And while we're not a perfect organization, I do think we've hit pretty well on those 3 things, and it brings me great pride to say as much.
Okay, amazing. And did you guys absorb? He was a 4th grade teacher. You went to Stanford and Harvard. My school is I always wanted to go to Harvard. Was accepted, actually. But anyway, from teaching to the president of a baseball team, like that,
Yeah, I mean, I just, in the middle of business school, where I was fortunate enough to go to Harvard, my old high school friend Matt Silverman called, and he'd been working at Goldman Sachs with a guy named Stuart Sternberg, and said that Stu was about to buy the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, as they were known at the time, and was I interested in coming down there and working for the team. And it was just too cool of an opportunity to pass up. We were in our late 20s at the time, Matt and I. He's always been just about the smartest guy I've ever known, and so the opportunity to partner with him, I always joke around with people, if we'd been given a sock factory to run, I would have been excited about. To get a Major League Baseball team was just beyond my wildest dreams, and been doing it now for 17 years.
It's awesome. And also, going back, though, to your passion for children, because Molly, you have such a huge passion for children as well. You guys, in fact, have chosen to put your 3 kids in the local public school, opting out of a private school to build that community. Why did you guys do that, and why is that so important?
I think for me, public school has just always been such a symbol of opportunity and access, and I grew up, my mom was a public school teacher, and I grew up in going to public school, and I grew up with the idea that that is what you do, and that is how you build community. And from very early on, when Brian and I moved to St. Pete, even before we had kids, we talked a lot about the public schools, and I think specifically here in Pinellas County, oftentimes our public schools you know, they have a bad reputation, and I'm not sure why. They're amazing schools. There's amazing teachers, amazing administrators doing so much to just give our kids a love of learning. And the one thing that I am really passionate about, and I think Brian is too, we could say, is that you have to be in it. You know, you have to be in it to make it happen. And education was always something that I was excited about, and that's one of the things that Brian and I have always had in common. Not always exactly how we get to those positive outcomes. We've had a lot of, you know, interesting conversations about that, but I think the one thing that we do both believe in is that you've got to be involved and you've got to be, you know, in it to help make change and really make our education system everything that it can be for all kids.
And tell us, you're a president too. You go, girl.
Yes. So, I mean, right now, I'm not going to lie, I have a couple different hats, but one of them, you know, I am the president of our PTA at North Shore Elementary. So this is my first year doing that, and it's been, you know, an interesting year with COVID and kind of re-entry into school and in-person learning, and so that's been really interesting. It's been hard at times, but it's also been really amazing, just seeing the community come together. The other thing that I do, and I've been doing for a long time now, and this is actually my last year as the president of the board, is with an organization called Project Prosper. So we work with immigrants and refugees in the Tampa Bay area. We give small, no-interest loans and financial education for specifically those folks, looking at how do we empower folks to integrate into our financial systems and use those to create opportunity for themselves and their families and their children.
Amazing. So Brian, when you listen to Molly speak about all of this stuff that she does, and of course probably the CEO of the household too, right? Which they usually
Co-CEO.
Co-CEO. How does that make you feel? Because I know, you know, oftentimes, of course, you're the president of a major baseball team, so you get a lot of attention, right? But to hear your wife speak and all the amazing things she does, how's that making you feel right now?
I'm incredibly proud, and I'm incredibly happy for Molly. You know, when she moved down here, she's always known, she's had a card. If she ever wanted to move anywhere, we would go anywhere. You know, I said, look, this is a pretty cool job that I have right now. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it works for us. You know, at the time we were just dating, we got engaged, we got married. But I was always really, I knew that for it to work, she had to find her niche and her things, and whether it be Project Prosper or now the work that she does with the, you know, North Shore Elementary, which is such an incredible school and which is a better school for having her involved in it. It just reminds me that we've made a nice little life here, and we're really a part of the community, and it's one of the reasons we're fighting so hard to make sure we stay here for a really long time.
And you guys are amazing. And honestly, all the things that the Rays do, like for instance, you guys have implemented programs, and you can see, because you both have that passion of volunteering and giving back to the community. I mean, you do things that most baseball teams, well, I shouldn't say that because I don't know about all the teams, but you have really implemented programs to help the community.
Yeah, it's core to who we are. You know, every employee gets one paid day off per month to volunteer wherever they want in the community. And it just helps us get the kinds of people hired that we want, keep the kinds of people who value that sort of a policy, and it makes our whole organization better. We have a lot of, you know, absolutely community-oriented, dedicated employees who also figure out the best ways to use the assets that a Major League Baseball team has to improve the community, and that's the whole point. Look, having taught fourth grade in a marginalized community for long enough to realize how difficult things can be for particularly certain populations, you see what's really important. And winning baseball games is great, but if that was all that we did, I think many of us at the organization would be left feeling a little hollow, and so it's using that platform to do all these other things that brings us real fulfillment.
So, how lucky are we, right, Tampa Bay community, to have the Auld as part of our community, bettering our community. So, you know how I love getting personal. All right, we talked about this important stuff, but we're going to go to a break, and we're going to get to how did these two get together in the first place? Because we're so happy that you're together. If you're together here in Tampa Bay, it all started with a Post-it note. I mean, we're talking from Boulder, New York, California, right? Where else, Molly? Dallas? Yeah, it's like you guys have been, yeah. So, okay, we're going to go to a break. We're going to go come right back, and we're going to be in Studio B, where we're going to discuss my favorite topic now, love.
I'm Serena Fazan, and I love my new Semis. And now it's your turn to get your new Semis and experience your best vision. For 20 years, New Semi has been your trusted eye care provider for cataracts, LASIK, and eye exams to ensure you have access to the best eye care with locations in Sebring, Carrollwood, South Tampa, and Clearwater. Visit newsomeye.com to schedule your appointment at one of their 4 convenient locations. Newsom Eye is proud to be an official partner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You deserve Newsom Eyes. I'm Serena Fazan, a journalist, producer, and podcast host. With a background in television news, I know how much time and talent it takes to produce a broadcast quality production. But no more. Red House Streaming offers a simple, cost-effective method for capturing live action and streaming it in real time to YouTube, Facebook, or any other website. From single camera shoots or multi-camera productions, conventional or virtual sets, and from the state-of-the-art Red House Streaming Studios to remote locations, the professional crew at Red House Streaming, backed by the technology and reputation of CP Communications, allows you to produce more content at a lower cost and with little to no engineering required. That's why my podcast, On the Record with Serena Fazan, is streamed live from the Red House Streaming Studios each week. Contact Red House Streaming today at 800-762-4254 or online at cpcoms.com to learn more. I'll see you in the studio. Hey, we're back, guys. Studio B. Brian just said, you have your own network. It's amazing. I know, I'm so humbled and blessed by that. Thank you for saying that. Of course, this is Brian Auld, of course, president of the Tampa Bay Rays, and his beautiful wife, Molly, president of Project Prosper, and a huge community advocate. All right, we talked about some amazing stuff already, but now let's get to your love story that started on a Post-it note. Molly.
Yes.
Share the story what you were telling me right before you got here.
Okay, so Brian and I met because my grandparents are his parents' next door neighbors. And basically, I was living in LA at the time. I was going to graduate school in New York, and I had to drive my car from California to Colorado. I was leaving it there with my parents. And when I was driving, I stopped at my grandparents' house, and they had recently moved in next door to Brian's parents, and I met his mom. And when I was leaving, they gave me his email on a Post-it note. And my grandmother says to me, my grandparents say, like, well, you should email Brian. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy lives in Florida. I don't know what they're thinking. And
did you even know what he looked like at this time? Okay.
No, I did not, because they had tried to get me to come over to Carol's house and see pictures, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. So, you know, I left. I left my car with my parents. I went on to New York and started my life living in New York, going to graduate school. And every time that I would get a phone call from my grandparents or talk to my grandparents, both my grandmother and my grandfather, which is really what put me over the edge, would tell me that Carol says you haven't emailed Brian.
Oh my God.
And I talked to my mom at one point, and I was like, how do we get them to stop talking about this? This is incredibly awkward for me. And she said, you know what, just send the email and tell him these are your crazy grandparents, and then you can tell them you've sent the email and you can be done with it. So I said, fine, and I sent Brian an email that said, hey, these are my crazy grandparents that want me to email you. I live in New York, like, let me know if you're ever around. We could, you know, meet up or something.
And Brian, at this time, was your mom asking you to email Molly, or who was asking you to email Molly?
Yes, constantly. But I had said, I'm not doing that. It's creepy. And I said, no, look, I'm not going to be, and my mother said, well, what if she emails you? I'm not going to be rude. Of course I'll connect and say, oh, great. Next time I'm in New York, we can say hello. Certainly wasn't anticipating any long-term romantic involvement. Neither one of our mothers, I don't think, are very good at this. They just got very, very lucky. And you know, so Molly eventually sent the email. I wrote back politely, and next time I was in New York, we went out to dinner.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this though: with the, you know, constantly, have you emailed him? Have you emailed him? Have you emailed her? How long did that go on?
I mean, I could guess. I went to graduate school sometime in the summer, like July or August, and I don't know, maybe like October-ish.
So several months.
Yeah, several months.
Okay.
And I mean, this was not my first time at this rodeo. I had in the past gotten emails from like someone in Romania that had met my grandmother and thought we should connect, you know. So I was kind of like, This one definitely lasted the longest, but it wasn't my first experience with my grandmother thinking she knew what was best for me.
Well, your grandmother must be very happy right now. Because
she's
clearly,
very proud of herself.
Oh, yes, clearly. Okay, so you send the email. You guys are going to meet for dinner. So what happened?
I remember asking a friend, living in New York, people dated a lot more than they did when I was in California. So I was asking my friends, like, should I go out with this guy? Like, is this weird? And they all assured me it was not weird and it was totally fine. And so they helped me pick a restaurant in the East Village, and I emailed him the name of the restaurant, and we met there. And we had dinner, and then we went out and actually met up with a couple of Brian's friends from high school that lived in New York at the time, and we went to this bar. And when I met them, I remember them saying to me, like, the first thing they said to me, they're like, so this is weird, right? This setup. And I was like, yes, these are my people. This is all good because these are my people. But yeah, and then afterward, I always tell people that when people say, everyone wanted to know how was the date, how was it, because it was so bizarre. I always say, considering I just went on a blind date with my grandmother's neighbor's son who lives in Florida, it was the best blind date I've ever been on.
So when you walked in and saw Brian for the first time, were you like, oh my gosh, he is really good looking? What were you thinking?
I'm very curious to see if she's going to tell the truth right now.
So this is a little bit of a contentious situation in our family because the truth is that before I met Brian in front of this restaurant, I had Googled him so I could know, what he would look like.
A fact that she lied about for, I think, 8 years before she slipped up, because she said, who Googles people? That's gross or something.
Well, because they were Googling me.
Because, of course, everybody
Brian's
Googled people.
friends were
This is
Googling
part
me.
of how the world works. And so she judged all of them and said, how could you do that? I would never Google someone. That's so messed up. And then, 4 years after we got married, she let slip that she had Googled me.
That's hilarious.
And I've been leaning on that since.
Yes.
So I kind of walked up to Brian. I knew who he was, but I didn't want to blow my cover that I Googled him. So I remember I kind of walked up, and then I backed up and was like, are you Brian? But I already knew because I had Googled him.
So when you Googled him, and believe me, I'm going to ask him these questions too, were you like, oh, okay, well, my grandmother did okay in this case?
So to be honest, Brian's, at the time, his Rays profile, in my personal opinion, I always say it made me throw up a little bit in my mouth. Oh my God. Because it was very I went to Stanford and I was the captain of a lacrosse team, and then I went to Harvard and hiked Mount Everest with my father. So I was like, oh man, I don't know this guy.
The bio was written by the PR department, and it didn't say I, just to be clear.
So cute. Hilarious. All right, so.
I'm a public school girl, so those were all very outside of my wheelhouse.
So Brian, I've got to ask you though, okay, so Molly walks in. What are you thinking?
Oh, I thought Molly was very pretty. This whole thing gave me unbelievable anxiety. I had a number of girlfriends before Molly, but never dated, just sort of the way people run into each other in college. And in fact, most of the people that I had ever dated, I had literally lived in the same dorm or nearby to, because I sort of wear you down to the point where you find me interesting. And so to actually do a blind date was incredibly anxiety inducing. The buddies that we met up with later had actually helped me pick out my clothes, and I still remember Taylor saying, where is your good stuff? And I was like, this is my good stuff. And he was like, you can't. And he gave me a shirt to wear, so I felt sort of uncomfortable in nicer clothes than I typically adorn at the time.
But that's so cute that guys actually get help to pick out clothes. It's not just us.
Yeah, I think it was, he didn't think I was in good shape to do this thing. Cute, the nice way to put it. I would have called it mean. And the dinner just started off. We got to talking really quickly. Our interest in education came up really, really fast. I don't know if it was that date or the next one that Molly said, I'll never move to Florida. This whole thing is silly. And I was like, that's cool. I don't come to New York that much. We'll just see what happens. And then things sort of spun from there.
Yeah, but so what happened? So with that first date, you did feel clearly, you guys are married, and for how many years now?
11.
11. It's going to be 12 in February.
Correct.
Clearly there was a huge connection to keep it going, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because he came back a couple of different times to New York, and I actually remember one time, I remember very distinctly, we had gone out to breakfast at a little Cuban restaurant that was one of my favorite places in like Soho. And I had to do a project. We
went out to breakfast because Molly had gotten so drunk the day before that she canceled our date. And she explained that UCLA had beaten USC, so obviously the date was off. I'm partying.
I mean,
I love this honesty.
I'd taken a trip to New York to see this woman. I didn't say to her that it was that, because that might have freaked her out.
Okay, but was it true? You actually
I mean, look, I went more often than I would have otherwise.
Okay,
we were young 20s, single people. I had plenty of friends in New York. It was fun to go. I had people to stay with and all that. But yes, it was sort of like, my friends, when the date got canceled, were like, well, this isn't good. That's not what someone who's interested in you does, And I was like, she wants to get breakfast tomorrow.
I would just like to say that for those of you who know, UCLA and USC is a huge rivalry, and it is the only time I think they have ever beat that football team. That was a big deal for me.
Yeah. Anyway.
I went to UCLA, so.
She's an independent girl. We gotta love this.
It was great. I had no problem with it. Again, I didn't think this was ever really going to amount to anything, and I was having a good time regardless. Again, visiting New York, there are worse things to do, and I had a good group of friends there. So yeah, it wasn't. There were no hard feelings about it.
But
anyway,
we went to breakfast.
What happened at breakfast?
We went to breakfast. I had some project that I had to work on afterwards, and so he kind of walked me onto NYU's campus at some point, and he went on his way. And I remember walking into the building that I was walking into and thinking to myself, like, could this be the guy? That would be crazy. That would be insane. That's insane. And kind of like went on about my life. And my day. But I do remember walking into that building and having that thought, that thought, especially because, as Brian mentioned, I mean, this was also bananas. Of course, this is not going to be my person. This was just kind of a random adventure that I was doing at the behest of my grandmother.
So how long had this long distance thing been going at this point, would you say?
I don't know.
That was like the third visit, I want to
Really?
say. Not long.
Yeah.
Maybe a month and a half.
Okay, so.
But I'm very charming.
Yes, you both are very charming. So, Brian, when did you have an epiphany as well?
It was slower moving for me than that. First of all, Molly denied me any of the satisfaction of sharing any feelings the entire time. And my buddies here, including Matt, Silverman, who's the other team president of the Rays, were saying, you need to be careful. Don't tell her you love her. You're going to freak her out like you always do, because I'm an emotional, sappy fellow. And so I was sort of trying to play it cool along the way. But I remember at one point feeling, and I think I said it to Molly, that I had, when you're in high school and you fall in love for the first time, or when you're younger, and then I'd had that feeling with 2 or 3 women in my life, and then I hadn't had it in most of my 20s. And I started to wonder if that was just part of being mature, that you don't fall stupid in love, because you recognize that those feelings never last, and you've broken up with 3 people that you were more in love with than anybody ever realizes in their whole life. And I said to Molly at one point, like, you've brought that feeling back to me that I thought might never come. And I think it meant something to her. It was after she said I love you to me, because I was holding out to make sure she did that first on the advice of counsel. And the funny part about that story was she actually did that to me when I was we were taking a vacation to Jamaica with some friends. And I was texting her from the plane because it happened to be low enough that I got service. And she thought that meant that the plane was going to crash. And that, for whatever reason, when she imagined me dying, was when she was like, I should tell this guy that I care about.
Oh my gosh. Is that true? Really?
I mean, I'll say it's true.
On account of it being the truth. Yeah, that happened.
So at this point, how long had you guys been together? And it was still long distance, right?
Maybe like a year.
Somewhere in my phone, I have our "I love you" versary, which I use just to make her do that, just to embarrass her every year.
Oh man!
Like, this is when you did it first.
He can always hold that you did it first.
He can.
So when did the engagement come, and how did you propose?
Oh, this is another story that involves Molly getting too drunk. Not that she has an issue by any means, but
Brian.
it was, what, June of 2009 or 10?
Yeah, 2009.
We had a real discussion about what Molly was going to do after she graduated from graduate school in New York. And it was basically like I said, well, you should move in, and the intention is for us to get married, but we are not getting engaged until we live in the same city. I'm a big believer that you should actually live together. I know that's semi-controversial. And we knew what it was like to be in each other's lives every single day, because when we saw each other up to that point, it was always like vacation. It was always just wonderful and romantic and exciting, and then you had gaps in between. And I've just seen too many times where that works, and then people actually have to go about their lives, and it's really hard. And Molly was going to have to find something to do while I was working this really challenging job in this really exciting environment. And so we wanted to make sure we could see our way through that. And so I think about a year after Molly moved down to Florida and we've been living together, I knew that it was time to propose. I got my grandmother's ring and wanted to be able to ask her parents in person. I also knew that if I gave her mother more than 24 hours notice, my cover would be completely blown. And so we did it at actually the very grandparents who set us up.
No way.
75th birthday / 20th wedding anniversary or something in Breckenridge. And they had invited everyone and their mother to this event. And I remember, like, it took me 3 hours to find a time where I could actually get her parents alone, away from all these people, to sort of, I wasn't asking for permission because I felt that was inappropriate, but I wanted to say it would mean something to me if I had your blessing. It's happening. Just to be clear, it's happening, whether you like it or not. And I knew they were fine with it, but I wanted to, do it in a 2000 style. And so I actually walked into their room where everyone was staying. I still remember her dad was on the couch watching a baseball game, and I was just sort of standing there. Her mom was on the phone. I was like, "Can I have a minute of your time?" And Judy was like, "Just a second." I was like, "Can you just hang up the phone? Like, we all know what I'm doing here. Can you do that later?" So we did that really quickly, and she was so excited, and then she wanted to know every detail, and I was like, "Well, I'm hoping we can go on a hike tomorrow, just the two of us, and figure things out." But that night there was this ruckus celebration and party, and Molly was not in good shape to go hiking the following day. And so I still remember I had an engagement party planned. The Rays were playing the Colorado Rockies in Denver, and we had a bunch of friends, a bunch of Molly's people all coming to this big celebration at the game, which was at, I want to say, 1 p.m. And it's 10 a.m. I haven't proposed yet.
Oh my God.
And so I say something to the effect of, "Hey, let's go for a walk," which is not a thing I do. And she's like, "Okay." And we went for this walk. I'm literally walking around her hometown just trying to find like a spot. I remember looking at street signs to see if anything resonated. And eventually we got to like the base of these mountains, and I just did it. And she got all flustered about me taking a knee and asking me to stand up, and she said yes.
Did you cry?
Brian probably cried.
Has she ever cried?
Brian's like, I'm the sassy
I do
one.
cry, but Brian probably cried. I don't think I did. I think I was very nervous. It just, very flustered is a good
Were you
good word.
surprised? Were you surprised?
I was surprised. I mean, I knew that Brian and I were going to get married. That was our plan. I knew that was our thing, but I really had no idea.
That it was happening at that moment.
Yeah,
That he was going to
no
propose at
idea.
the moment.
Yeah.
And then did you have the wedding of your dreams?
I think I have one wedding regret, and it's that we didn't take more professional photos. It's my only wedding regret. With like
worried
friends.
about what that was
with
be.
friends. Like, I was so, but yes, no, we did. I mean, the rule with our wedding is that we wanted everybody who we cared about to be there, and so we were going to do everything else around that. So we got married here in Florida.
Yeah, it was an open bar and unlimited guest list, including our parents.
Including
Whoever
our
you want.
parents. We just, whoever wanted to be there. We didn't have like enough seats for everyone to sit during the wedding. We kind of got like married in the round sort of thing. Some people were standing, some people were sitting.
Our friends officiated.
Yes.
It was great. Yeah, it was the wedding of our dreams.
Yeah, so it was,
And at the time, Molly thought that the photos always took
Were-
away from the
yes,
couple's
from the
enjoyment of the
experience.
wedding, so that's why we didn't do that, which I guess is
My
a
only
regret,
wedding
but at
regret.
the moment we were like, yeah, we want to party with everybody else, not have to run off and do photos.
Yeah.
But see,
So-
isn't that so interesting? 'Cause this is the stuff that we love learning, right? But I, honestly, my mind is still at how sweet that the proposal happened at the very, very house, right? The grandmother's house.
Well, we
Kind
had
of, Boulder
very
and
close.
Berkeley.
We were
Yeah.
in Colorado. Yeah.
Yes, in Colorado. Oh my gosh. All right, so before we close out the show, I always ask couples, what advice would you give to people who want to be in a long-term relationship and married?
My two things kind of come a little bit, I'm not going to lie, a little bit from my dad. My mom will probably be upset that I'm giving him credit here, but one of them is that you have to always remember to grow and change together, and that you're not always going to do that at the same speed. And so if you're growing or changing faster, it's your job to wait for the other person. And if you notice the other person growing and changing, that it's your job to try and catch up, and that you're going to try to meet each other there. So that's one. And the other one, which is something that for me has been, is always there, and I try to kind of carry it into different relationships, is just assuming the best intentions. Assuming that the person that I love loves me, and what they're doing is not to be hurtful or mean or spiteful. And if they've done if any of those things have happened, that you need to share that with that person and communicate and talk about it, because, I do believe in my, Brian's always doing his best to make me happy, to make our life full, to be the best dad that he can be, to be the best friend that he can be, and you got to let that happen.
And though he comes up short constantly,
No.
he's trying.
No,
that's really
sweet.
it. I mean,
That really is sweet.
that's what we both think is the thing. I mean, we wrote it into our vows even to give each other the benefit of the doubt, because it's the truth. And it was not easy to come to. I mean, the number of arguments, fights that we had sort of as we melded together as a couple around me just saying, if I'm doing something that's bothering you, it is by accident. Like, all I want is for you to be happy. It's literally the most important thing in the world to me. And so just help me do it, and we'll accomplish that. The last thing I want to do is be in this argument. And if you sort of stay with that and work your way through it and learn to trust one another in it, and it has to be true, by the way, or it doesn't work, then you can get there. But I always, I'm always so grateful. Molly has never once said, don't go take that trip with your friends. Don't go out tonight. When just sort of to keep me from doing it, right? Mm-hmm. If there's a reason, then of course we understand each other. But we both want each other to get everything we can out of life, and recognize that sometimes that means making sacrifices. I love that Molly doesn't have to worry for a second about going away for the weekend either. She knows the kids aren't going to eat as well as they would otherwise. There's probably going to be some Band-Aids that get deployed, but I'll get through it and it'll be fine, and I'm game for it, right? And I love that she does that. So I would say those things.
Well, you guys are an amazing couple, and again, I'm so honored and flattered that you would come on the show on Love in America, and especially my 100th episode. I thought this was very cute, guys, that they watched or listened to at least Alex and Andrew Warren's Love in America podcast. They were on Valentine's Day, actually. We featured them on Valentine's Day. Uh-huh. So I think that, you guys, hey.
Exceeded them?
Well, I would say equal, right?
Feels like a little bit of a cop-out.
Yeah,
If all the listeners out there, maybe you could do a poll.
I think we should totally do a poll.
I'm not the least bit competitive with Andrew, so I'm not worried about it at all, but a poll would be great just to see.
I think a poll is a great idea. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a lot of fun couples on. In fact, Martin Gramatica is going to be coming on with his wife. Tony Dungy said he's coming on with his wife. Let's do a poll.
The truly accomplished individuals we're not trying to compete with, but I certainly want to beat the Warrens.
Okay, all right. Okay, you heard it here on the record. Let's do a poll. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. You can find me on multiple platforms, and they usually put up this amazing graphic with all these platforms. But I have even more platforms, but the graphics, there we go. But it's growing. So I really, really appreciate it, and have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Stay safe.